The conference room felt suffocating as Sophia Adams watched Marcus Winters stride to the front, his broad shoulders filling out his tailored navy suit perfectly as he prepared to address the board of directors. Her heart hammered against her ribcage the way it always did when he entered a room, though she'd gotten better at hiding it over the past 3 years. She'd been his executive assistant since the beginning, back when his sustainable energy company was just a bold idea and a leased office space. Now, Winters Energy Solutions was valued at over $4 billion, and Marcus had become one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the industry. She pressed her pen against her notebook, pretending to review her notes while stealing glances at him. The afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the bronze in his dark hair, and when he turned to gesture at the projection screen, she noticed the tired lines around his eyes. He'd been working 18-hour days for the past 2 weeks, finalizing the merger with a European distribution company. The projections show a 32% increase in efficiency once we integrate their infrastructure with ours, Marcus said, his deep voice carrying that quiet confidence that made investors lean forward in their seats. We're not just building a more profitable company. We're creating something that will actually make a difference in how cities consume energy. Sophia had typed those words herself last night when he'd called her at 11, pacing in his office while dictating revisions to his presentation. She'd heard the passion in his voice then, the genuine belief that his work mattered beyond the bottom line. It was one of the 1,000 reasons she'd fallen completely, hopelessly in love with him. Not that he knew. Not that he could ever know. The board meeting concluded with handshakes and approving nods. Sophia gathered her materials and followed Marcus back to his corner office, maintaining the professional distance she'd perfected. His assistant, his right hand, his friend maybe on good days, nothing more. That went better than expected, Marcus said, loosening his tie as he dropped into his leather chair. He ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up slightly, and Sophia had to resist the urge to smooth it down. Thanks for the last-minute changes to the financial slides. You always know exactly what they need to see. Just doing my job, she replied, settling into the chair across from his desk. They had a routine, this post-meeting debrief where she'd go through his schedule and he'd share his actual thoughts about how things went. It's more than a job, Sophia. You know that. His gray eyes met hers, and for a moment, something flickered in them that made her breath catch. But then he looked away, pulling up his calendar on his computer. What's the damage for the rest of the week? She walked him through it. The dinner with potential investors, the site visit to the new facility in Portland, the charity gala on Saturday that his mother had insisted he attend. When she mentioned the gala, he groaned. Can't I just write them a check and skip it? Your mother specifically told me to make sure you go, something about it being important for your public image. Sophia allowed herself a small smile. Plus, it's for children's hospitals. You actually care about that cause. Fine, but you're coming with me. Her stomach flipped. Marcus, I'm your assistant, not your date. I know that, he said, and was it her imagination, or did his voice sound slightly strained? But these things are unbearable alone, and you're better at remembering names and connections than I am. Please, I'll count it as overtime. She should say no. She should maintain boundaries. But the thought of seeing him in a tuxedo, of spending an evening by his side even in a professional capacity, was too tempting to resist. Okay, but I'm picking a dress that screams assistant so no one gets the wrong idea. Something crossed his face then, almost like disappointment, but it vanished so quickly she convinced herself she'd imagined it. The rest of the week blurred past in its usual controlled chaos. Marcus trusted her with everything, from managing his schedule to handling sensitive communications with board members. She knew his coffee order by heart, knew when he needed space to think, and when he needed someone to challenge his ideas. She'd become indispensable to him professionally, and that should have been enough. It wasn't enough. Friday evening found her in an upscale boutique with her best friend, Rachel, who dragged her there despite her protests. "You said you wanted something that screams assistant," Rachel said, holding up a stunning emerald gown that definitely did not scream anything professional. "But what you need is something that screams look at what you've been missing, you oblivious billionaire." "Rachel, no. That's not what this is." Sophia touched the silk fabric anyway, imagining Marcus's reaction if she wore something like that. "Honey, you've been in love with this man for how long?" 2 years. 3, Sophia admitted quietly. "Pretty much since the first month I started working for him." "Right. 3 years of watching him date models and actresses, and that one venture capitalist who laughed like a hyena." Sophia winced at the memory. Marcus's relationships never seemed to last more than a few months. He'd date someone intensely for a while, then it would fizzle out and he'd throw himself back into work. She'd learned to dread the mornings when he'd ask her to send flowers or make reservations, knowing it meant someone new had caught his attention. "He's my boss, Rachel. And even if he wasn't, I'm not the type of woman Marcus Winters dates. Those women are glamorous and sophisticated, and none of them lasted because they weren't you," Rachel interrupted. "Have you ever considered that maybe he's looking for something he already has?" "That's a nice fantasy, but I live in reality. In reality, I'm the person who organizes his life and makes sure he eats lunch. I'm not the person he falls in love with." Rachel gave her a long look, then sighed. "Try on the green dress for me. You don't have to buy it." Sophia tried it on. The dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves before flowing out in an elegant skirt. The color brought out the gold flecks in her hazel eyes and complemented her dark auburn hair. She looked like someone who belonged at a billionaire's side, not behind his desk. She bought the dress. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. Sophia spent an hour on her hair and makeup, telling herself she was just making an effort to represent Marcus's company well. When she slipped into the green dress and studied her reflection, a different woman stared back. Confident. Beautiful. Someone who might catch a billionaire's eye. The doorbell rang at 7 sharp. Marcus always insisted on picking her up when they attended events together, saying it didn't make sense to take separate cars. She grabbed her clutch and opened the door, and the words she'd been about to say died on her lips. Marcus stood in her doorway in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, and he was staring at her with an expression she'd never seen before. His eyes widened, traveling from her face down the length of the dress and back up again. His jaw tightened. "Sophia," he said, and her name sounded different in his voice. Rough, almost reverent. "You look professional," she offered weakly, her heart racing. "No." He stepped closer and she caught the scent of his cologne, cedar, and something spicy. "You look absolutely stunning. You always do, but tonight." He trailed off, shaking his head as if to clear it. "We should go, don't want to be late." The drive to the hotel hosting the gala was quiet. Marcus seemed lost in thought, his hands gripping the steering wheel of his Audi tighter than necessary. Classical music played softly through the speakers, and Sophia watched the city lights blur past, wondering what was going through his mind. "Sophia," he said suddenly as they pulled up to the valet stand, "I want you to know that I appreciate everything you do for me, not just the work stuff. You make my life better. I don't think I tell you that enough." She turned to look at him, confused by the sudden sincerity. "Marcus, what's going on?" "Nothing, I just—" He met her eyes in the dim light of the car. "I just wanted you to know." Before she could respond, the valet was opening her door and the moment passed. Marcus came around to offer his arm, and she took it, trying to ignore how right it felt to walk into the glittering ballroom by his side. The gala was everything she'd expected. Champagne and classical music, designer gowns and important conversations. Marcus introduced her to everyone as Sophia Adams, the person who actually runs my company, which made her laugh despite her nerves. She watched him charm donors and business associates, saw the way people gravitated toward him. He had a gift for making everyone feel like the most important person in the room. Except he kept looking at her. She felt his eyes on her while she talked to a board member's wife about the hospital charity. When she glanced over, he was supposed to be listening to a state senator, but his attention was entirely on her. When she excused herself to get a drink, he appeared at her elbow within seconds. "Having fun?" he asked, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Define fun," she replied. "I've successfully avoided 3 different men trying to pitch you their startup ideas, and your mother cornered me to tell me I look lovely and that you need to settle down." Marcus choked on his champagne. "She said what? That you need to settle down? Apparently you're not getting any younger and she wants grandchildren." Sophia grinned at his horrified expression. "Don't worry, I told her you're focused on your career." "That's not." He paused, seeming to struggle with something. "That's not why I haven't settled down." "No, then why?" The champagne was making her bold, asking questions she normally wouldn't dare. He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something in his gray eyes that made her pulse quicken. Longing. Frustration. Something that looked almost like pain. "Because," he said quietly, "the person I want doesn't think of me that way." Sophia's heart plummeted. Of course. There was someone. Some woman who'd somehow failed to see what an incredible man Marcus was, and he was pining for her while Sophia stood here in her stupid green dress, hoping for something impossible. "Then she's an idiot," Sophia managed to say past the lump in her throat. "Anyone would be lucky to be with you." "Would you?" The question hung in the air between them. Sophia stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "What?" But before Marcus could answer, a hand clapped down on his shoulder and a booming voice interrupted them. "Marcus Winters, just the man I wanted to see." The moment shattered. Marcus's expression closed off, and he turned to greet the newcomer with practiced politeness. Sophia excused herself and fled to the bathroom, her hands shaking. "Would you?" What did that mean? Was he asking hypothetically? Was he talking about someone else and making small talk? Or had he been about to? No. She couldn't let herself think that way. She was reading too much into a simple question. Marcus was her boss, her friend, nothing more. He'd probably had too much champagne himself. She splashed cold water on her wrists and took several deep breaths, giving herself a stern talking to in the mirror. "Get it together, Adams. This is just a work event. Stop imagining things." When she returned to the ballroom, Marcus was deep in conversation with a group of investors. She kept her distance, using the time to network with the other attendees. A few men asked her to dance, and she accepted, grateful for the distraction. She was swaying to a waltz with a pleasant CFO from a pharmaceutical company when she felt eyes on her again. Marcus stood at the edge of the dance floor, watching her with an intensity that made her miss a step. The CFO said something, but she didn't hear it, too focused on the way Marcus's jaw clenched when her dance partner's hand moved slightly lower on her back. Was he jealous? The song ended and she thanked the CFO, but before she could leave the dance floor, Marcus was there. "Dance with me," he said. Not a question. She placed her hand in his and he pulled her closer than was strictly professional. His hand settled on her waist, warm through the silk of her dress, and she rested her free hand on his shoulder. They moved together easily, naturally, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. "You've been avoiding me," he said softly. "You were busy with investors." "Sophia." He said her name like a plea. "Did I make you uncomfortable earlier? If I did, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "You didn't make me uncomfortable," she interrupted. "You confused me. What did you mean when you asked if I would be lucky to be with you?" His hand tightened on her waist. They were barely moving now, just swaying in place while other couples whirled around them. "I meant exactly what you think I meant," he said, his voice low and intense. "I was asking if you would feel lucky, if you could see me that way, as more than your boss or your friend." Sophia's breath caught. This couldn't be happening. This was some champagne-induced dream, and she'd wake up Monday morning and everything would be normal and professional and heartbreaking. "Marcus, I don't understand. You've dated all these other women, and I thought—" "I dated them because I was trying to get over you," he said bluntly. "Every single one of them. I'd meet someone and think maybe this time it would work, maybe I could feel for them what I feel for you. But it never did. No one else was you." The ballroom seemed to fade away. There was only Marcus, looking at her with those gray eyes full of emotion she'd never let herself hope for. "How long?" she whispered. "Since the beginning. Since you came into that interview 3 years ago and challenged me on my expansion timeline, telling me I was being too conservative. You were right, by the way. We hit that market 2 years ahead of my original schedule because I listened to you." He smiled slightly. "I wanted to kiss you right there in the conference room, this brilliant, beautiful woman who saw exactly what my company could become. I hired you because you were the best person for the job, but I fell in love with you before you even left that first meeting." Tears pricked at Sophia's eyes. 3 years. You felt this way for 3 years and never said anything? You work for me. I didn't want to put you in an impossible position or make you feel like you had to reciprocate because I'm your boss. I told myself I could keep it professional, that just having you in my life was enough. But God, Sophia, it's not enough. Watching you tonight, seeing other men dance with you, pretending I don't want to tell the whole world that you're mine." He stopped, seeming to realize what he'd said. "I'm sorry. This is exactly what I didn't want to do, put pressure on you, make things awkward. We can forget this conversation happened. I can find you a position in a different department if that would make you more comfortable. Marcus." She said his name firmly and he stopped talking. "Stop. Just stop and let me talk." He nodded, looking vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Marcus Winters, Billionaire CEO, looking like he was bracing himself for rejection. "I'm in love with you too," she said simply. "I have been almost since I started working for you. Every day I come to the office and try to be professional, try to just be your assistant, but I'm in love with you. The way you care about making a real difference, not just making money. The way you remember the names of everyone who works for you, even the cleaning staff. The way you get this little crease between your eyebrows when you're concentrating. I love all of it. I love you." For a moment, Marcus just stared at her. Then he pulled her closer and his forehead touched hers. "Say it again," he breathed. "I love you." 3 years, he said, and she heard laughter in his voice now. "We've both been in love with each other for 3 years and we're too afraid to say anything. We're idiots." "Complete idiots," she agreed, and then she was laughing too, her hands coming up to cup his face. "What do we do now?" "Now," he said, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "I kiss you. If that's okay." "More than okay." He kissed her right there on the dance floor in front of 500 gala attendees. It was soft at first, tentative, like he still couldn't quite believe this was real. But then Sophia kissed him back and something unleashed between them. 3 years of longing and restraint dissolved. His hand slid into her hair and she pressed closer, not caring who was watching. When they finally broke apart, slightly breathless, She became aware of the silence around them. Then someone started clapping. Within seconds, the entire ballroom erupted in applause and cheers. "Well," Marcus said, grinning down at her, "so much for keeping our personal life separate from work. You just kissed me in front of half the business leaders in the state. I think that ship has sailed. Good. I'm tired of pretending. I want everyone to know that you're the woman I love." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose, like he was making up for lost time. "We should probably still work out the professional aspects. HR is going to have thoughts about the CEO dating his assistant." "Former assistant," Sophia corrected. "Rachel has been nagging me for months to take that position heading up the new development department. I kept saying no because I wanted to stay close to you. But maybe it's time." "Head of new development. Sophia, that's a senior executive position." "Are you sure? I've been running half your company from behind the scenes anyway. Might as well make it official." She smiled up at him. "Plus, then there's no conflict of interest when I do this." She kissed him again, and the crowd cheered louder. They left the gala early, neither of them able to focus on networking when they kept gravitating back to each other. Marcus drove them to a quiet overlook that showed the city lights spread out below, and they sat on the hood of his car, her head on his shoulder, talking for hours. "Tell me everything," he said. "When did you know? What made you fall for me?" There wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 little things. Like that time we worked until 3 in the morning on the investor presentation and you ordered pizza for the whole staff who'd stayed late, not just us. Or when you spent your Saturday helping your elderly neighbor move furniture because her son couldn't make it. You're this brilliant businessman, but you're also just genuinely good, Marcus. How could I not fall in love with you?" He kissed the top of her head. "I knew the day you brought homemade soup to the office because you noticed I was getting sick. No one had taken care of me like that since my mom. You were so matter-of-fact about it, like of course you'd spend your evening making soup for your boss. I almost told you I loved you right then." "Why didn't you?" "Fear, mostly. Fear of losing you. Having you in my life as just my assistant seemed better than not having you at all." He tilted her chin up to look at him. "I'm not afraid anymore. I love you, Sophia Adams. I want to date you properly. Take you to dinner, hold your hand in public, introduce you as my girlfriend. I want everything with you." "I want that too." She kissed him softly. "Though you should know I'm a pretty demanding girlfriend. I'll expect actual dates, not just working dinners. And someone's going to have to teach you work-life balance. You've been trying to teach me that for 3 years. I'm a slow learner. Lucky for you, I'm patient." They stayed there until the early hours of the morning, making plans and stealing kisses, reluctant to let the night end. When Marcus finally drove her home, he walked her to her door like a proper gentleman. "Dinner tomorrow?" he asked. "A real date. I'll pick you up at 7. "I'd love that. But Marcus," she caught his hand, "this is going to be complicated. Work, the gossip, your board of directors. Some people aren't going to be happy about this." "I don't care, you're worth any complication." He squeezed her hand. "But we'll figure it out together. That's what we do, right? We're a good team, the best team." He kissed her one more time, lingering before forcing himself to leave. Sophia floated into her apartment, calling Rachel immediately despite the late hour. "He loves me," she said as soon as Rachel picked up. "Marcus loves me. He's been in love with me for 3 years, Rachel. 3 years." Rachel's squeals of joy were so loud that Sophia had to hold the phone away from her ear. Monday morning brought a new set of challenges. Sophia arrived at the office early to find Marcus already there, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the way his face lit up when she entered and the way he crossed the room to kiss her. "Good morning," he said against her lips. "Good morning. But we should probably not do this at the office yet, not until we've talked to HR. Right, professional." but he stole one more quick kiss before stepping back. I've already scheduled a meeting with human resources and legal. 9 o'clock. We'll make sure everything is handled properly. The HR meeting was awkward but necessary. Marcus's head of human resources, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia, listened to their situation with a neutral expression. "This is highly irregular," she said finally, "but not unprecedented. We've had office relationships before, though never at this level of the organization. The power dynamic is concerning, which is why Sophia is transferring to head the new development department," Marcus said. "We're not asking for permission to be together, Patricia. We're informing you of our relationship and making sure we handle it ethically." Patricia sighed. "You're going to have to disclose this to the board. Some of them are going to push back. There might be calls for Miss Adams to leave the company entirely. Then they can find a new CEO," Marcus said flatly. "I'm not choosing between my company and the woman I love. If they can't accept that we're handling this appropriately, that's their problem." Sophia's heart swelled. She reached over and squeezed his hand, then remembered where they were and pulled back. Patricia noticed and almost smiled. "All right. I'll draft the appropriate disclosure documents. Miss Adams, I'll need you to formally apply for the development position, though I imagine you'll be approved. In the meantime, I suggest keeping displays of affection outside the office. People are going to talk regardless, but let's not give them more ammunition." "Understood," Sophia said. "Thank you for handling this professionally." "Just don't make me regret it," Patricia replied, but her tone was kind. The news spread through the office quickly despite their attempts at discretion. Sophia's desk phone rang constantly with congratulations from colleagues, and she noticed the whispers in the hallways. Most people seemed genuinely happy for them, but there were a few cold looks from women who'd had their own hopes about catching Marcus's attention. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday. Marcus was calm about it, but Sophia was nervous. These were powerful people who might see her as a gold digger or worse. "Stop worrying," Marcus told her Thursday night over dinner at an elegant Italian restaurant. This was their fourth official date, and it still felt surreal to be sitting across from him, holding hands across the table, not hiding anything. "The board can complain all they want, but I have majority shares. They can't actually stop this. I don't want to be the reason you have problems with the board. You're not. You're the reason I want to build something even bigger. Do you know what my motivation was before you? Money, success, beating the competition. But now," he raised her hand to his lips, "now I'm building something I want to be worthy of you. A company that actually matters, that makes the world better. You inspire me, Sophia. The board should be thanking you. You're biased, completely, hopelessly, madly in love with you," he grinned. "Have I mentioned that today?" "Only about 5 times. Make it 6. I love you." The board meeting was tense. Marcus presented the situation straightforwardly. He and Sophia were in a relationship. She was transferring to a position where he wouldn't be her direct supervisor, and all proper protocols were being followed. "This is a distraction," one of the older board members said. "Workplace romances never end well. What happens when you break up? This could damage the company." "We're not going to break up," Marcus said confidently. "But even if we did, we're both professionals. The company wouldn't suffer." Another board member spoke up. "I'm more concerned about the optics. Your assistant suddenly becomes a senior executive right when you start dating. It looks like favoritism, Marcus. Sophia has been effectively operating at an executive level for 2 years, Marcus countered. "Ask anyone in the senior leadership team. She's qualified for this position, relationship or not. In fact, I should have promoted her a year ago, but she kept turning it down." Sophia had been silent up to this point, but now she spoke. "May I say something?" The board members looked surprised but nodded. "I understand your concerns," she said calmly. "This situation isn't ideal from a corporate governance perspective, but I want to make something clear. I earned my position at this company. Every promotion, every responsibility I worked for. Marcus and I kept our feelings private for 3 years specifically because we didn't want to compromise our professional relationship. We're not asking you to approve of our personal life. We're informing you that we've followed all proper channels, and we're both committed to ensuring our relationship doesn't impact the company negatively. If anything, it will make us both more motivated to succeed." There was silence. Then one of the younger board members started clapping slowly. "Well said. Look, I'm going to be honest. I don't care who the CEO dates as long as the company keeps performing the way it has been. And if Miss Adams has been behind even half of what I suspect she has, promoting her is smart business, relationship or not." The vote ended up being in their favor, though not unanimously. A few board members abstained or voted against, but the majority supported them. Marcus squeezed Sophia's hand under the table. When they left the meeting, Marcus pulled her into an empty conference room and kissed her thoroughly. "You were amazing in there," he said. "The way you stood up for yourself for us. God, I love you." "I love you too, but we should probably get back to being professional, at least while we're in the building." "Agreed. But tonight I'm taking you somewhere special." That night, Marcus drove her to the coast, to a private beach house Sophia had never seen before. It was beautiful, all windows and modern lines, with the ocean stretching out endlessly before them. "I bought this place 6 months ago," Marcus said as they walked through the house. "I kept telling myself it was an investment, but really, I was imagining bringing you here. Spending weekends away from the office, away from everything, just us." "It's perfect," Sophia breathed, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. They had dinner on the deck, fresh seafood and wine, talking and laughing like they'd been doing this forever. After dinner, Marcus pulled her close, swaying to music only they could hear. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. Sophia's heart jumped. "Marcus, if that's a ring, we've only been officially dating for a week," he laughed. "It's not a ring. Not yet, but it is something important." He pulled out a key. "This is for you, for the beach house. I want you to think of this as our place. Somewhere we can escape to, just be ourselves." She took the key, tears pricking at her eyes. "Our place. I like the sound of that. Good. Because I plan on bringing you here a lot, starting with this weekend. I told the office I'm taking a few days off. First vacation I've taken in 2 years. Marcus Winters taking a vacation." "I don't believe it." "Believe it. You've been telling me I need better work-life balance, and you were right. About that, about everything." He cupped her face in his hands. "You make me want to be better, not just as a businessman, but as a person. I want to take time to enjoy what we're building together." They spent the weekend at the beach house, and it was perfect. They walked along the shore, cooked meals together, talked about their future. Marcus was different here, away from the office, more relaxed. He laughed more, teased her, chased her through the waves like they were teenagers. On Sunday evening, as they sat watching the sunset from the deck, Marcus said, "I want you to move in with me." Sophia turned to look at him. "That's fast." "I know. But we've known each other for 3 years, Sophia. We've spent almost every day together. The only difference now is that we're not pretending we don't love each other." He took her hand. "I'm not trying to rush you. If you want to wait, we'll wait. But I hate leaving you every night. I want to wake up with you, come home to you, build a life with you." She thought about her apartment, comfortable but lonely. Thought about how right it felt to be here with him in this space that was theirs. Thought about how she'd loved him for 3 years and how every day with him felt like a gift. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it. Let's move in together." His smile was brilliant. He kissed her, pulling her into his lap, and she laughed against his mouth. "You make me so happy," he murmured. "I didn't know I could be this happy." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Sophia officially started her new position, which came with its own challenges and rewards. She'd been right that she'd essentially been doing executive-level work already, but having the title and the authority made a difference. Her team responded well to her leadership, and she felt a sense of satisfaction she'd never quite achieved as an assistant. She moved into Marcus's penthouse apartment downtown, a process that involved combining their belongings and negotiating closet space. Marcus insisted she take the larger closet, claiming he didn't need much room for his work suits. They fell into an easy routine, morning coffee together, commuting to work separately to maintain some professional distance, texting throughout the day, coming home to each other every night. The office gossip eventually died down, especially as people saw that Sophia was genuinely good at her job, and that neither she nor Marcus were letting their relationship interfere with their work. If anything, the company thrived. Marcus was more focused, more balanced. Sophia brought fresh perspective to the development department, launching initiatives that increased efficiency across the board. 3 months into their official relationship, Marcus took her to meet his family at their home upstate. His mother, Catherine, was a warm woman in her 60s who hugged Sophia the moment she walked through the door. "Finally," Catherine said. "He's been in love with you for years. I was beginning to think he'd never work up the courage to tell you." "You knew?" Marcus asked, looking embarrassed. "Sweetheart, you talked about her constantly. Sophia suggested this. Sophia handled that. Sophia is so brilliant it was painfully obvious." Catherine smiled at Sophia. "I'm glad you love him back. He's a good man, my son." "I know," Sophia said. "I'm lucky to have him." Marcus's father, Robert, was more reserved, but she won him over during a discussion about sustainable energy policy. By the end of the weekend, Robert was showing her his workshop and Marcus's childhood photos. "They love you," Marcus said on the drive home. "Not that I'm surprised. Everyone loves you. Your dad showed me the picture of you in that terrible haircut when you were 12. He didn't. He did. It was adorable. It was a traumatic time in my life and we don't talk about it." She laughed, reaching over to squeeze his hand. "I love your family. And I love that they welcomed me so easily." "Of course they did. You're going to be part of the family." He said it casually, but Sophia caught the implication. "Marcus Winters, are you thinking about proposing to me?" "Maybe. Eventually, when the timing is right." He glanced at her with a soft smile. "Would you say yes?" "Maybe. Eventually, when the timing is right." But she knew she would. She knew with absolute certainty that she wanted forever with this man. 6 months after their first kiss at the gala, Marcus announced a major expansion of Winters Energy Solutions. They were opening facilities in 3 new states, creating hundreds of jobs, and partnering with environmental organizations to implement clean energy in underserved communities. Sophia stood beside him during the press conference, no longer his assistant but his partner in every sense of the word. She'd helped plan this expansion, had worked closely with the teams to ensure it would be both profitable and purposeful. "None of this would be possible without our incredible staff," Marcus said to the assembled reporters. "Particularly Sophia Adams, our head of development, who's been instrumental in every aspect of this expansion." After the press conference, they went to dinner at the restaurant where they'd had their first official date. Marcus seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. "Everything okay?" Sophia asked as they finished dessert. "More than okay. Perfect, actually." He reached across the table and took both her hands. "Sophia, this past year has been the best year of my life. Every morning I wake up grateful that I get to love you, that you love me back. You've made me a better person, a better businessman, a better everything. Marcus, what? Let me finish. He was smiling, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. I wasted 3 years being afraid to tell you how I felt. I'm not wasting any more time. I know where I want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. I want to be wherever you are. He stood up, and Sophia's heart started pounding as he moved to kneel beside her chair. The other diners were starting to notice, pulling out phones, whispering. "Sophia Adams," Marcus said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Will you marry me?" The ring was stunning, a brilliant emerald surrounded by diamonds, the same green as the dress she'd worn to the gala, the same green as the moment everything changed. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her as the restaurant erupted in applause. It felt like the gala all over again, but better, because this time they were promising each other forever. "I love you," Marcus said, holding her close. "I'm going to love you for the rest of my life." "I love you too, even when you had that terrible haircut when you were 12. He laughed, and she felt the joy vibrating through him. They were married 8 months later in a ceremony at the beach house, surrounded by family and close friends. Sophia wore a simple white dress, and Marcus couldn't stop smiling as she walked down the aisle toward him. His best man was his college roommate, but Sophia's maid of honor was Rachel, who cried through the entire ceremony. "I told you he loved you," Rachel whispered as she hugged Sophia before the ceremony. "I told you that you were what he was looking for." "You were right," Sophia admitted. "About everything." The vows they exchanged were personal and heartfelt. Marcus promised to always listen to her ideas, to take vacations, and to never stop trying to make the world better with her by his side. Sophia promised to challenge him, support him, and love him through every success and setback. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed her like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Which, in a way, he had. The reception was joyful and intimate. Marcus's mother cornered Sophia at one point and said, "Welcome to the family, officially. Though you've been family in his heart for years." "I still can't believe he loved me all that time and never said anything," Sophia said. "He was afraid. Marcus has always been confident in business, but when it comes to his heart, he's more cautious. He couldn't bear the thought of losing you." Catherine squeezed her hand. "Thank you for loving my son. Thank you for seeing him for who he really is." Later, as they danced under the stars on the deck of their beach house, Marcus whispered in her ear, "Happy, deliriously happy. You, more than I ever thought possible." He pulled back to look at her. "I have a confession. That day you came in for your interview 3 years ago, I knew the moment you started talking that you were going to change my life. I just didn't know how much. I was so nervous. You were this billionaire CEO, and I was just trying not to say something stupid. You were perfect. You are perfect." He kissed her forehead. "And you're mine now, my wife. I get to call you my wife. I get to call you my husband. That's going to take some getting used to. We have the rest of our lives to get used to it." They honeymooned in Italy. 2 weeks of wine and history and stolen kisses in ancient piazzas. Marcus made good on his promise about work-life balance, barely checking his phone the entire trip. They talked about their future, about the family they wanted to build, about dreams they'd never voiced before. "I want at least 2 kids," Marcus said one evening as they sat at a cafe in Rome. "Maybe 3. I want our house to be full of noise and chaos and love. 2 or 3 sounds perfect. Though you realize you're going to have to actually leave the office at reasonable hours to be a present father, right?" "I know, and I will be. I don't want to miss anything. First steps, first words, first days of school, all of it." He reached across the table to take her hand. I want to build a life with you, Sophia, not just a company. A real, messy, beautiful life. We're already building it. Every day. When they returned from the honeymoon, they threw themselves back into work with renewed energy. But now there was balance. They left the office by 6 most days. They spent weekends at the beach house. They hosted dinners for friends and family. They were building that life Marcus had talked about, brick by brick. A year after their wedding, Sophia found out she was pregnant. She told Marcus over breakfast on a Saturday morning, simply handing him the positive test without a word. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at her with tears in his eyes. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby." He swept her into his arms, lifting her off the ground despite her laughing protests. "We're having a baby. Sophia, we're going to be parents," I noticed. That's generally what pregnancy leads to. But she was crying too, overwhelmed with joy and love and the perfect rightness of this moment. The pregnancy was relatively easy, and Marcus was an attentive husband, attending every doctor's appointment and reading every parenting book he could find. He talked to her growing belly, telling their daughter about the company they'd build for her, the world they'd try to make better. "She's going to be brilliant like her mother," he said one night, his hand on Sophia's stomach. "And stubborn like her mother, and beautiful like her mother." "What about like her father?" Sophia asked, running her fingers through his hair. "Hopefully she gets my work ethic, and maybe my eyes. But everything else should be from you." Their daughter, Emma Catherine Winters, was born on a sunny morning in May. She had Marcus's gray eyes and Sophia's auburn hair, and she was perfect. Marcus cried when he held her for the first time, this tough businessman reduced to tears by a 7-pound bundle of love. "Hello, Emma," he whispered. "I'm your dad, and I'm going to love you forever. You and your mom are my whole world." Sophia watched him with their daughter and fell in love with him all over again. This was the life they'd built together. This was what they'd been working toward, even when they didn't know it. Catherine and Robert were devoted grandparents, visiting often and spoiling Emma shamelessly. Rachel was the godmother, taking her duties very seriously. The entire office sent gifts and congratulations, and Marcus's executive assistant, a competent woman named Diana, handled everything smoothly while they took parental leave. "I can't believe I used to work like this," Marcus said one night as they sat together, Emma asleep between them. 80-hour weeks, no breaks, no life outside the office. What was I thinking? You were thinking you wanted to build something that mattered, and you did. We did. But this matters more. He gestured at Emma, at Sophia, at the life they'd created. "This is what I want to be remembered for, being a good husband, a good father, not just a successful businessman. You can be both. You are both." Emma grew quickly, hitting every milestone and keeping them thoroughly exhausted. But it was the best kind of exhaustion, the kind that came from late-night feedings and early morning giggles and constant, overwhelming love. When Emma was 18 months old, Sophia found out she was pregnant again. Twins this time, 2 boys who would round out their family perfectly. "5 of us," Marcus said, his hand on her belly while Emma toddled around their living room. "We're going to need a bigger house. We're going to need a lot of things, including about 1 million more hours in the day." But they figured it out, the way they always did. They moved into a larger house with a yard for the kids to play in. Marcus cut back his hours even more, bringing in a co-CEO to share responsibilities. Sophia transitioned to a consulting role, working from home so she could be present for the children. The twins, Noah and Mason, were born 2 weeks before Emma's 2nd birthday. Marcus's parents moved closer to help out, and Rachel was a constant presence, claiming to be the best aunt in the world. Their life was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. Years passed in a blur of birthday parties and school plays and family vacations. Emma grew into a bright, curious girl who wanted to know how everything worked. Noah was gentle and artistic, always drawing or building something. Mason was the adventurer, fearless and energetic. Marcus coached their soccer teams and helped with homework and never missed a bedtime story. Sophia managed their household with the same efficiency she'd once brought to the office, while still finding time to consult on major projects at Winter's Energy Solutions. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Marcus took Sophia back to the beach house, his parents watching the kids for the weekend. 10 years, Marcus said as they sat on the deck watching the sunset, just like they had so many times before. Best 10 years of my life. Even with the terrible 2s times 3, even then, especially then. He pulled her close. Do you remember the gala when I finally kissed you? I remember thinking it was the best and scariest night of my life. I couldn't believe you loved me back. I can't believe I waited so long to tell you. 3 years, Sophia. We could have had 3 more years together. We have a lifetime now, that's what matters. He kissed her and it felt the same as it had 10 years ago. That same spark, that same sense of coming home. I have something for you, Marcus said, pulling out a small box. More jewelry. You spoil me. Open it. Inside was a key, similar to the one he'd given her all those years ago. But this key was attached to a photo of a beautiful property, acres of land with a main house and several smaller buildings. What is this? It's a retreat center for families working in sustainable energy and environmental causes. A place where they can come, recharge, let their kids play safely while they collaborate and dream. I bought the land last year and had it developed. It's ready now. He smiled at her. I'm naming it the Sophia Center, because you taught me that success isn't just about building a company. It's about building community, supporting people, making space for life outside work. You changed my whole perspective and I want to honor that. Sophia was crying, staring at the photo through tears. Marcus, this is incredible. This is exactly the kind of thing I always hoped we could do. I know, because I listened to you, I always have. He wiped her tears gently. You're my partner, Sophia, in everything, and I want to spend the rest of our lives building things that matter together. I love you. I'm so in love with you. I'm in love with you too. Even more than I was 10 years ago, which I didn't think was possible. They spent the weekend making plans for the center, dreaming about the families they'd help, talking about their own family and what the future held. Emma was starting high school next year, the twins were in middle school, and somehow their babies had become these incredible young people. Time goes too fast, Sophia said. Then we better make the most of every moment. And they did. They continued to build their life together, year after year. Marcus stepped back from day-to-day operations of the company eventually, focusing more on philanthropy and mentoring young entrepreneurs. Sophia ran the retreat center, finding it to be the most fulfilling work of her life. Emma went to college for engineering, following in her father's footsteps but carving her own path. Noah became an architect, designing sustainable buildings. Mason started a nonprofit focused on environmental education for kids. Through it all, Marcus and Sophia remained each other's constant. They still went to the beach house every year on their anniversary. They still had coffee together every morning. They still looked at each other like they couldn't quite believe their luck. On their 25th anniversary, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, Emma had married and had 2 kids of her own. Marcus stood up to make a toast. 25 years ago, he said, looking at Sophia, I married the woman I'd been in love with for 3 years. The woman who made me want to be better, do better, live better. And every single day since then, I've fallen more in love with her. People ask me what my greatest achievement is, and they expect me to say the company or the innovations or the money. But it's not any of that. My greatest achievement is building this life with Sophia, this family, this love. He raised his glass. To my wife, my partner, my best friend, to the woman who changed everything. I love you, Sophia, for the rest of this life and whatever comes after. Sophia stood and kissed him while their family cheered. And in that moment, surrounded by the life they'd built together, she thought about that terrified girl who'd walked into a job interview 3 decades ago, never imagining she'd end up here. She'd spent 3 years loving Marcus from afar, convinced it was hopeless. He'd spent those same 3 years loving her, too afraid to risk what they had. And then, on one perfect night at a gala, everything changed. All because she finally told him she loved him, unaware he'd been loving her all along. It was the best risk either of them had ever taken.